Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. So the latest PU monthly report is quite a long one, so let's get going. As always, these videos are made possible thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members. Thank you guys so much for the support. All the links are in the description below. So kicking off with the animation team, they created animation sets for the tourist and tour guides and made plans for creatures. Now I expect that this will most likely begin with Horizon landing zone and the space whale tours. Maybe the tour guides showing us the space whales as they fly through the clouds. That would be kind of epic. On the facial side, a mocap shoot was done for an upcoming event, and the pipeline was improved for the mocap select tool. For the character art team, they progressed with assets for Horizon, NPC outfits for 314's hospitals, armor for 315 moved through the pipeline, and a new mining themed set for an upcoming patch is nearing completion. Very much looking forward to this mining themed outfit or armor set. It's nice to see more industrial style suits being explored. R&D began for armor props and interiors to support physical inventory, and this involves refactoring the old armor sets to add interiors and setting up the tech to allow for armor sets to exist as standalone objects that can be carried by the player. Now this is one thing that I really look forward to, is being able to pick up each piece of armor, be it a torso, a helmet, or an arm, or a leg, will be physicalized and have its interior and be able to be carried and moved around and boxed up eventually. So great to see progress in that area. In environment art, the colonial outposts moved from white box to grey box, with gameplay considerations and functionality being added to the various modules. It won't be long until we get to see these as physical settlements on the planets and moons, although they will be, I think, first occupied by AI. The new docking arms and lobbies were also finalised and will be live in an upcoming event, Fleet Week, I presume. The landing zone team progressed with Horizon, with the new cloud tech, they say, enabling stunning vistas above the Crusader gas cloud, which this image looks very nice. Hopefully we get to see more of this soon. Work on the platforms is nearing completion, with the final polish being completed and the latest interaction of the exhibition halls were finished. Now I'm not entirely sure, but I think this is referring to Horizon's platforms for the Cloud City, whether it's a spaceport of some form or whether it's just where they build their own spaceships. I'm not too sure, but it does sound appropriate. And finally, the organic team produced new flora for the Horizon habitation platforms and supported the gas cloud tech for Crusader. So moving on to ship art, the ship team in the UK wrapped up the majority of the Crusader Hercules, with only the A2's bomb release mechanism requiring further attention. The A2 isn't actually scheduled to release until Q3 patch though, so we're not going to see that anytime soon. And as yet unannounced ship continued through the final art phase, with only one interior area and an exterior polish and damage pass to go. This could be the 400i maybe. Your thoughts in comments would be appreciated. The Aegis Redeemer progressed through final art phase, with the exterior and manned turrets both nearing completion, and the grey box phase was finished for both the remote turrets and landing gear. More ships have been converted to the hard surface shader to make them paint ready, and wear and tear was made consistent across the ship lineup. And now with the gold standard Gladius completed, the team moved on to the Aegis Sabre, so nice to hear which ship is getting this treatment next. The team also continued to focus on the Tumbril Nova Tonk, finishing the art, with design finishing the movement and treads and overall experience, making sure it's up to standard before release. Progress was also made on the Constellation Taurus, and bugs were squashed for the vehicles coming in 3.13. So for the weapon art team, they progressed with the size 7 bearing ballistic Gatling gun, the multi-tool salvage attachment, and the standalone tools went through the first pass blockout and were added to a development build for early testing. Plus, the Ultiflex Novia crossbow was iterated on, with the team improving the rigging setup and making sure it was working as intended for animation. Very much looking forward to trying out that crossbow. I'll probably have to steal someone else's though. Several other tasks have been completed, including support for the Nova Tonk's size 5 cannon and updates to the medpen and other devices for medical gameplay. I always thought the Nova Tonk's cannon was a size 4, so they must have upped it one size, which means it'll be pretty effective, I think. The audio team focused on UI and sound effects for ship-to-ship and ship-to-station docking. They also looked into improving ambience design across all derelict ships, with the work that came for the new derelict Freelancer variants. They worked on trolley push and pull and crafted foley and sound effects for the mounted turret guns, and the team said that they have been very excited to be working on the Nova Tonk, designing and implementing sound effects for the vehicle's movement, moving parts, turrets and its notable cannon. And I can just imagine playing with the Tonk is going to be a lot of fun. We will definitely jump into the PU once that lands. Anyway, the engineering team added physics support for multiple solar systems. March saw various code optimizations, including the physicalization of planets, ray-bound intersections, and using octrees for ray occlusion tracing. Plus, the velocity limit for explosions and shockwaves was removed, and the interior grids can now be saved to allow proper instancing. They continued working on the Gen 12 renderer, such as porting emissive lights and object motion blur, and the shader parser was refactored in parts to allow for faster processing. Engineering also made great progress with volumetric clouds, with tint support being added to allow for more flexibility when coloring clouds for exotic planets. It's going to be very interesting the day that we see different planets other than Stanton's, not just for the UEE, but when we see the Banu, the Vanduul planets, the Jan planets. There is going to be so much diversity. It'll be quite a breathtaking sight, I expect. Cloud shaping was further improved to provide a better sense of local volume, while shadow refinement was added to further contribute to cloud detail. And on the core engine side, more work was done on performance analysis and regression. The team are looking into replacing their current UI solution for post-mortem performance analysis based on captured performance telemetry data. Additionally, the threading logic was refactored to further improve performance, and the job system now utilizes specific APIs introduced in Windows 8.1 and Windows 10. It does still work with Windows 7, but it just won't benefit. This will allow for much improved waking of jobs and preventing contention in the fiber system thread. Now, they said that this will be particularly noticeable on CPUs with a significant number of cores and will be rolled out in 3.13. So the character team reduced the update frequency on certain character components based on their distance from the player, which was made possible due to the changes made to the underlying update logic by the engine team earlier this year. Basically, a component can now be told to update every other frame, and when it does, it's informed of how much time has elapsed since the last update. Now, early prototypes suggest using elapsed rather than frame time allows for a surprisingly earlier reduction in update frequency and the character stat logic. As with any optimization though, this is being tested before implementation. Anyway, moving on to gameplay features. Now, the engineers finalized the TDD for the asset manager and began to create the provider that will manage a majority of the application logic. Now, I assume this is referring to the new asset manager app, which will allow us to see where all of our items are located. They also continued to plan for the upcoming cargo refactor, with the goal of physicalizing cargo contained within the grid. This refactor is quite extensive, they say, as the cargo and commodity systems are intertwined with several other areas. Now, the team will also convert the commodity kiosk to the new building blocks UI system and tie this into the asset manager as well. Progress was made on the next dynamic event, which is now in the final stages of implementation, with the engineers fixing any remaining bugs and designers focusing on audio integration and polishing tasks. No idea what this is. It could be Fleet Week. I'm assuming it's Fleet Week. Whether there's some form of event happening during this time, which it sounds like there is, but we just don't know what that is yet. I don't know if it's the Ninetales thing. It could be, as this was kind of what was planned for the next event, so chances are it might be. Anyway, on to the mission and live content features. The team progressed with the new security system that allows them to identify when a player enters a location that they don't have permission to be in. This allows the AI to act accordingly without the need to give the player a crime stat. The vehicle features team heavily refactored and partially rewrote the ATC system, or air traffic controller system, to account for the docking arms used in ship-to-station docking. Now the arms are fully integrated with the station control and benefit from all the features of ATC, such as loitering around stations, spawning and despawning of ships, and hailing for docking through the comms menu. Work was also done to integrate docking with other systems, such as the procedural universe tool, which is used to create bases and space stations, and personal inner thought, so players can initiate docking with the interaction wheel, which will be quite useful. So development continued for the thrust to ground visual effects. This has been improved and expanded on since we last heard, with the team working on aerodynamic wake effects that cause dust to be kicked up when ships are flown close to the ground at high speed. Now this is going to be incredible to see, as well as the environment being realistically kicked up by thrusters. It'll just embed the ships more into the environment and make them feel like they are actually there. Finally, the missile guidance and control refactor made great progress, with missiles flying much more predictably in recent playtests. So nice to hear. I think this is the missile operator mode that is now scheduled for 3.14, so we won't be waiting too much longer for that. So for the graphics and visual effects programming teams, the render to texture system now has a fixed memory budget, which will now dynamically down-res the RTTs until they fit, which ensures stability in extreme scenarios, as previously they had no budget and will sometimes lead to out-of-memory issues. They also began planning for the transition to the Gen 12 renderer to better understand when each milestone will be delivered, to help determine the balance of staff working the transition, features and bugs. And the visual effects programming team split time between bugs, fire, signed distance field shields and particle lighting. Now the fire feature is a long-term task, with the current focus on fire spreading between rooms, light spawning and repair, and the particle lighting is a new model that gives higher quality and more consistent and physically plausible results. So lots of work going on there. Anyway, on to the lighting team. They supported the docking feature, providing unique moods for the R&R stations and more military-minded security docks, with work on the docking arm continuing, including prototyping animations for the lights as the arm extends and retracts. Work continued on hospitals for Horizon and New Babbage, with the team working closely with environment art and design on the lobbies, pharmacy shop, individual floors and recovery rooms. Now we also got to see quite a few new screens of hospitals, which I am hopefully already showing, and they do look pretty amazing. For the props team, they supported several locations, including the colonialism outposts, with some assets going to Greybox. The Greybox pass also began for hospitals, including the bed and gurney, which will be a big part of the gameplay experience. It'll be so much fun seeing patients on these gurneys being moved around, and obviously combine that with the push and pull system. Maybe we'll be able to throw some patients down the halls. The props team worked closely with AI content and features to produce template geometry for new feature usables, such as the shopkeeper and tourist, and they fixed a large number of bugs. Now the QA team's focus was preparing for 3.13's release, ensuring that all player reported issues were properly documented, while testing continued for several upcoming features and events as well. They continued to perform sanity checks on the PU and test new locations, plus investigating issues while providing feedback on the general state of AI. QA also worked alongside the engineering with server stress testing and minimum PC spec testing to help improve the overall stability of the game, and they worked alongside the tools team to continue testing many of the tools. The Systemic Services and Tools team pushed forward with various resources on their public presentation of quantum services. They put the finishing touches on the AI info service that ties directly into quantum and various other services. Very excited to see this. What it's talking about here is Tony Zurovec, who is one of the lead brains behind the quantum system. He is going to be giving a presentation in the upcoming few months, talking further and showing actual tangible examples of how this system works, which I cannot wait to see. Development into a new service began, specifically on new NPC spawning and ATC service systems. So the tech animation team spent last month iterating on the in-house facial pipeline. They're aiming for a faster and more intuitive approach to FACS expression authoring for the complicated facial systems, which will incorporate the smooth skinning decomposition tech from last month's R&D. They also maintained and triaged assets from several other departments to ensure that the project structure, builds, and animation systems are kept in a stable state. And finally, assets that will be used as the basis in the development of various creatures were completed. Moving on to Turbulent, the game services continued working on server meshing, onboarding more team members along the way. They also delivered the first demo of a fleet manager system currently deployed on internal development environments. And the configuration service responsible for distributing client configurations to game clients was finalized. The live tools team continued to work on the crash handling pipeline with fixes to Sentry and Jira linking. They also created software in support of tools developed by the Montreal-based location team and created code to allow the Hex gateway to talk to the Diffusion game services. The UI team further developed the underlying tech for the new map system and ported some older UI to building blocks to help with future-proofing and performance. The UI artists entered the pre-production phase for the upcoming medical UI, with visual target concepts signed off and functional prototypes ready for full production in April. This is going to be great getting some medical gameplay in-game. I know many people, including myself, would love to play the support role from time to time. The UI was also polished for radar and scanning gameplay for both vehicles and on foot. Now, the vehicle tech team progressed with the update to the radar scanning system, focusing on ping to make finding distant objects a more satisfying experience, with the UI and visual effects elements currently being implemented. The locomotion and tread movement for the Tumbril Nova was iterated on to ensure it feels appropriately tanky across all planetary bodies. And finally, a project to ensure ship landing gear functions properly in all areas of the game is nearing completion. This involves properly syncing landing gear with the server to make sure that they function properly in all non-flight scenarios. Moving on to visual effects, they fine-tuned and optimized the signed distance field shield impact effects, and effects were created for the Tumbril Nova tank, including its main weapon. This included prototyping a subtle shockwave effect that displaces loose surface matter on the ground and on the vehicle itself. Now, although this prototype isn't guaranteed for the tank's initial release, the groundwork will prove useful for a variety of other effects that utilize physicalized shockwaves. And this, all I can think, is going to look incredible. Seeing the ground kick up as it fires, it's going to be insane fighting alongside a tank. And just seeing all that dust kick up like you do with real tanks will really just make it feel like it's a powerful machine. Also, the Crusader Hercules effects were completed in March, and a prototype for thruster wind volume effects was worked on, which will allow vehicle thrusters to better interact with loose surface matter on the ground and other locations to give thrusters a more powerful feel as they hover in locations with gravity. Again, similar to how the tank will kick up dust, this is more when your thrusters are blasting when you're coming into land or take off, kicking up the dirt and whatever's on the ground, realistically and also based on the environment itself. So for AI content, specifically for the PU, they have completed the first pass on the hawker behavior and began modifying the kiosk setup to replace the old activities, with the team saying that our goal is to quickly push through some of the content we can already exploit in Star Citizen based on the existing scenario and allow the players to experience a more interactive environment. Now, I won't go into any other AI stuff because I have covered this in the Squadron 42 monthly report, so if you do want to learn more about what's going on AI, especially as a lot of the AI work is specific to Squadron, then be sure to watch that video. But that was this month's Persistent Universe monthly report. I do apologize if my voice is quite echoey. I am in a new office and I haven't soundproofed it yet. But if you do enjoy my content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And also, we will be getting back to streaming next week. So follow the link in the description to twitch.tv/supermacbrothers if you would like to hang out together. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind. It does the channel a big favor. And a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members again. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.